Hey everybody, it is the Angry Honey Badger here, and it is in fact time for Badgers Picks for the week of March 15th. It is in fact the middle of March already. Can you believe it? We're going to see who's free this week and which 4 champions I'm going to recommend. For this week, we're going to see Draven, Kindred, Malzahar, Nami, Nocturne, Quinn, Riven, Singed, Taric, and Twisted Fate. And as for my first champion recommendation for the week, I'm going to give that one over to Kindred. Kindred, she saw a couple little nerfs, you could say, but she really hasn't been touched too much in the recent, you could say. She is a very impactful jungler if you're capable of unlocking her potential. Or their potential, since, they kind of hang out together. Anyways, she, where she really gets her power is by ganking early. She has a lot of good base damage that she can bring to gank. She also has that slow, and then you land that third attack, Wolf jumps in and does a crazy amount of damage on that bite. You can really start to snowball early advantages. That's what you really want to do with Kindred. So if you're going to play her, I recommend, working on early ganking. If early ganking is a problem for you anyways, I just recommend playing her to kind of get in like the mindset of I need to early gank, because that's where she hits her stride to then get a good advantage in the game. She will fall off a little bit if you don't get that going, but if you do make it to the late game, she has great output because once she gets those buff stacks too, she'll have plenty of damage. But she's a good champion. She is newer too, so a lot of you may not own her. I recommend you trying her out this week. As for my second champion recommendation for this week, this one might seem a little odd, but I'm going to do it. It's Malzahar. Now, the reason I'm recommending Malzahar, it's not that he's like revolutionary by any means, but for people who maybe aren't comfortable with the mid lane role, or maybe aren't the best at farming, although this isn't the greatest champion for that since he can kind of screw up his own farming with his dot. But the one thing I do like about Malzahar, especially if you're somebody who is maybe not the best at catching that your enemy mid laner is roaming, you can shove pretty well with Malzahar, and in fact he shoves really well the whole game. You can just build a Rod of Ages on him, get kind of like that tanky AP, push waves, farm well, get big items, and then lock down those high priority targets when you get into those fights. But like I said, the one thing he does quite well once you get going past, once you get a few points into your dot, he does a really good job of pushing into the enemy turret, which will cause you to make that turret take a lot of damage, meaning you'll take turrets early if you can, and you'll just cause problems for them to farm, and you'll be creating pressure. Now, when you do this, you're going to attract a lot of attention, so make sure you are warding to keep yourself safe when that happens, because you don't do the world's greatest amount of damage in a 2v1, but you do great damage in a 1v1, so try him out this week. My third recommendation for this week is going to go to somebody I think has been better than a lot of people realize, and that's actually going to be Nocturne. Nocturne, I've been a big fan of him. I think he's also pretty easy to jungle for the most part. His first clear is kind of meh. It's not as good as other junglers, but it's not bad by any means. He's a solid ganker too. A lot of people disrespect the amount of pressure that his ultimate actually brings when the darkness lands on the map. Try to use the darkness like duration a little bit longer instead of just activating and then activating again to fly to the target. Maybe activate, let it sit for a second, because the paranoia that can come in to the enemy laners that you're not even ganking can actually help your laning teammates a lot. That's one thing to use with it. Also, his fear's really good, and he's one of those champions you can actually either decide to go kind of like a full damage build or like a damaged pseudo tank build. It works really well on him. That's what I usually do. He's a really good jungler too, just in general, and I think he's a fun champion to play too. Nothing super hard to play, but definitely pretty enjoyable. So try him out this week if you don't have him. And for my final recommendation for this week, I'm going to give that one over to Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate I do like as a champion. I think he is also very fun to play. It is Badgers Picks. I am picking champions that I'm just like and having you play because that's how this works. But Twisted Fate is a really good champion if you are pretty good with understanding your capabilities. For example, you need to be able to pull out the correct cards when you need them. You should be pulling blues when you're in lane. Getting mana back and being able to push, blue cards and then wild cards off that and then blue card again to get more wild cards off that again. and you're able to pull yellow cards when you need them for the stuns. You got to be pretty clutch with that. If you're not, you'll have a pretty terrible time, to be honest, but that's why you should play him this week. If you don't own him, you have time to practice him without investing in a champion you may not like. He does take a little bit of time, though, to get down. The other thing, too, is make sure you try to coordinate your early ganks with your jungler when he is also ganking. 3v1's a little bit easier than 2v1 if you're new with him, so that's something I suggest. Also, make sure you can queue up your yellow card right as you use your Destiny Gate to get into that fight. That way you don't come in without that card ready, because the duration of it is plenty long enough that you can have it up. So I suggest you doing that with the Twisted Fate this week. Try him out. Those are the champions that are free this week, all 10 of them. Play, obviously, any of the ones that you want to play. Those are just the 4 I recommend. I think they're all pretty solid champions in different ways. Balthazar doesn't really fit in a lot of team fight comps, but honestly, in like solo games, he has a lot of pressure because of the pushing. But a lot of other really good champions this week too, to be honest. A couple that I don't think really fit right now, but that's always going to happen with this. But yeah, if there's a box around any of these champions, portraits, you can click on it. It'll take you to some kind of video for that champion. But other than that, I wish you all the very best of luck this week on the Fields of Justice.